Hey, welcome to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, and this is a special edition here. We are live from the Minnesota Historical Society, and we're here live at the opening of Reframing Our Stories, and I'm here with Rita Arndt. Rita, welcome.
Bonjour, Robert. I'm happy to be here and happy to have everybody here for the opening today.
It's been awesome, and I know we have an elder here, and even better yet, a Ho-Chunk elder here, and we should get right to her right away because I know there's fry bread downstairs, and she wants to go in. Well, I want to say a big welcome. Could you introduce yourself in a good way?
Sure. Igi wajokina hanachini karagiwi. Igi Robert Pilot ga pinagigi. Igi ji hinashida. Thank you for asking me to be on here and to share thoughts with everyone, and want to welcome you to this program.
Well, I want to thank you too, and a big pinagigi. Let's talk a little bit about what you had to say today. It was really heartfelt about natives here, and I'm wondering if you could share. It seems like the microphone's going in and out. Rita, could you share the mic with?
Sure.
Yeah, let's switch around here.
Okay.
Hey, sound good?
Technology.
Oh, it's a good one. Hey, we're here live, and let's talk a little bit about what you spoke on today and reframing your. We're here with reframing our stories, and you've been here since 1959, and a lot of these pictures that are here, you know these people.
Yes, I do. I know generations of some of the people captured in the pictures of the exhibit. So it was really heartwarming to see many of them. Today they're adults, many of them are grandparents, many of them have moved back to their homelands, their reservations, and they now have, second, third generation still here in the Twin Cities. So it was definitely very heartwarming. Brought back a lot of really good memories of the 60s, 70s, and on up. It's a rich history, a rich legacy of so many people, and a lot of work, a lot of good work that was done by so many, really on behalf of helping one another, helping our people here, especially in the Twin City area, where often there can be challenges coming off reservations and bringing a family, being uprooted, coming into a large metropolitan area where you don't know anyone. Back in the 60s, it was a kind of a tumultuous era even. There was a lot of racism and lack of resources, which often that continues. And in spite of that, we survived, found each other, built organizations, built schools, and still was able to celebrate together, grieve together at times, help one another, brace each other up. So a rich history, just thinking about all of that, and also, being here for other relatives that would come off the reservation to help them even get started here.
What's amazing to me is there's a percentage, and I think, Rita, maybe you can shake your head yes or no, but I think we have like 65% of natives are off reservation now.
Yes, that seems accurate.
This is fun, sharing the microphone. But go ahead. Yeah, I mean, we have a big family here in the urban, as being an urban Indian, and many different tribes and many different people. And you said something interesting today, earlier, that we all found each other.
Yes. My family, like I shared this morning, my mother brought us here in 1959. My father, my stepdad, was here. He just had, not just, but he was served some time in World War II. And then from that, he acquired a skill as a welder, and then came here because there was more jobs here than back home. So he got a job as a welder, and he worked at that until he retired. And then in the course of that, he remarried and married my mom. They were high school sweethearts.
Oh.
So my biological father passed, and she, 5 years later, got back with my stepdad, and he moved us here. So in 1959, there were Native people living here. We just didn't know where they lived. And not that many of our Ho-Chunk people lived here. So it felt like we were the only Native people in the Twin City area. But eventually we found each other,
Yeah.
right? Because that's what we do. We find each other. Like even when you're in a public place, you see another Native, you're like, that's that
Look at
guy.
those beautiful
Yeah,
braids.
exactly.
Oh,
Wow, look at those earrings, right? But it's kind of goes deeper than that. Somehow or another, you're able to when you see each other that you're Native, and that feels good. Just that connection, even if you don't say anything. So we did that in 1959. My parents found other Ho-Chunks that lived here, and they started something called the St. Paul American Indian Club. And I didn't mention that this morning, but it was just to get together, and they eventually they raised money, real grassroots style, and started powwows. They would do one every, I think, quarterly, and they got bigger and bigger. There was, people coming from, the Ojibwe reservations and the Dakota, from Sisseton, South Dakota, and from Winnebago, Nebraska, and from Tama, Iowa, and from Wisconsin. And before you knew it, we had a big powwow quarterly. So, and they did that all with funds that they would raise themselves as a little club. So that's how we found each other. And then, of course, our issues here in the Twin City area, with that also we came together to identify solutions to a lot of the social issues that existed back then. And in the course of a lot of like I said, the era was pretty tumultuous in the 60s. And, we experienced the racism, the police brutality, and from there, the need for the American Indian movement to address some of that. So my brother was involved with AIM, and my mother was also very activist-minded, right? So she also was also participated in a lot of the protests. And so that was the 60s, and a lot of organizations sprung up, schools, our own Native owned and operated, tribally controlled schools, where we were able to teach our history, the accurate history of our people, and also the language, the art, the music. So my brother worked at one of them in Minneapolis. It was called Heart of the Earth Survival School. He worked there for a number of years as a teacher and as a coach. So.
Well, let's talk about your brother for a second. There's a picture of him, and it's warm to my heart because here we are, a Native show called Native Roots Radio, and your brother was a trailblazer in that way.
Yeah. My brother, he was kind of like, he was interested in all areas. And one of the things that I just love about what he did was every day he would make it a point to get the newspaper, right? Back in the day when we had newspapers and people read newspapers.
Yeah.
He would go down to the newsstand and get his copy of the St. Paul Pioneer Press every day. And he got personally friends with the guy who sold the papers on the corner. And they were on like a first name basis. So he'd get a paper and he would be up on all the current events in the Twin City area, in the mainstream community, but also, national events. And also he stayed on top of all the sports and just was knowledgeable in all areas. So he was this kind of a person that could just communicate with anyone.
Wow.
And he wanted to, sort of elevate his voice along with, our Native people in this community. So he started a radio. He and a couple of his friends started a radio program called American Indian Radio, AIR. So,
I get it. Hey,
AIR. And so it was, I think it was on the air maybe once a week for like, maybe not an hour. I don't know. I don't remember. But it was a chance to share current events, which he was always on top of, whether it was just locally with, our Native community here in the Twin City area, kind of things that were going on, things that were happening, but also even nationally, things that were impacting our communities, so our tribal communities. And then also they shared music, they shared jokes, humor, so I loved it, and my brother was, he was, our name Ho Chunk means people with the loud voice, people with a clear voice. So, and that's what he was. That was another sort of a platform for his elevating his voice along with our native community. So he started that radio program, which is so needed, right? A way to, again, stay connected with our people, our relatives in the community.
Well, one of the things that we do here is we talk about Native issues, and those are issues that we know as Natives, but our allies don't know. And so it's important for people like you to educate our people out there. I just want to jump back for just 1 second. There's a play about Franklin Avenue right now, but in the day, it was the West Side, Frogtown. There was more than just Franklin Avenue when it comes to, and these pictures are showing this when it comes to Natives here in the Twin Cities, especially.
Yep. Yes, we had, inner city was our homes, and we were, it was multicultural, and my family, we lived in Frogtown, right? And my dad, with his veteran benefits, moved us to the suburbs. Okay, so here's another culture shock. Going from inner city Frogtown to Roseville, Minnesota, where we were the only Native family for miles around. I was the only Native student at a school called Alexander Ramsey, which Alexander Ramsey, the guy, was kind of racist. So they changed they changed the name even to Roseville High School after I graduated. But anyway, he moved us out there. But yeah, inner city is like I don't know what you call it, our concrete, reservation or something. It was
that's a good one.
Yeah, right. It really was kind of like home. Where we were able to live close by, our neighbors that were Native and other people of color. So it felt comfortable. And then later on, after I married and had a family, we moved to the West Side, where, again, it was happening there with the Mexican-American community, and did a lot of work there on the West Side as well, where we still have our home there after 40 years.
Right.
So yeah, it was, again, we organized even here on this side of the river. So, it's kind of, we didn't believe back in the day that there were these geographic lines that had to separate us, right? The land belonged to everyone. We belonged to the land. And so, but there was a little bit of competition between Minneapolis natives and St. Paul natives. Like, it was like one of the things that we'd always tease each other about was like the streets, how the streets are organized. They said, I don't know how you people get around in St. Paul. Your streets are just every which way. There's no order. Minneapolis, there's streets and avenues, and the avenues are alphabetical, and the streets are first, second, third, fourth. So I'm always teasing them. I was like, I don't get it where you say, we'll meet at 12th and 24th. I don't know what that means, like 12th Avenue and 20. So even those kind of jokes about, our either side of the river where we live. But yeah, we had, we organized wherever we lived, and we were kind of had our pulse on our finger on the pulse of what was going on in our community and the needs that were that existed back then. So, I knew there was, in the course of my work, I kept coming upon people who'd been abused, who were experiencing domestic abuse. So I became really interested in that area because my mom was so activist minded. She also took in people who were experiencing domestic abuse. So our home was kind of like a shelter.
Wow.
So getting interested in that area, and through that, again, really, starting to organize with other Native women in the, in mainstream society who are addressing those issues. So I used to always say, I wanted to do something different than my brother because he was really well noted in all of his areas, in the area of education and criminal justice. So I sort of had forged a path of my own to work on issues that were impacting our community as well. So along the way, people would say, I didn't know you were Henry Greencrow's sister. But that was kind of like, I was proud of it, but I also wanted to sort of make a difference in my own way. So that's the work that I've been doing all the years.
We joke about Ho Chunk that we're all related, but we are in a lot of ways. I mean, when I heard that you were related, the Claremonts, I go, Claremonts are a big name here in the West Side, and Well, they are. Your family is in a really good way, and I appreciate that. So it was really exciting for me to hear that you were related to that picture. Your family was
Yeah.
that. I mean, I'm getting a little emotional here, but it's I know my cousin in a white way, Dallas. He's really big with your family, and
Yeah.
I know when it comes to ceremonies and singing and funerals, your family steps up.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, that's what we do, as Native people. We're there to help each other, in good times and in hard times. So that's what we do.
So I was thinking today, and I was thinking earlier during our conversation, how do you feel about the pluses and the minuses that Native Americans have gone through in your lifetime? Because I look at a place like Franklin Avenue, and they didn't have all those services back in the 50s or 60s, and you talked about Heart of the Earth and Red Schoolhouse. We didn't have that. Ability or to teach our young ones who are now older ones teaching. Is it amazing to see how far we've come,
Oh,
even though
yeah.
we have a long way to go still?
Yep, absolutely. It took a lot of persistence and a lot of perseverance and, the never giving up and just continuing to hammer away. And every now and then you capture the attention of someone out there who, becomes an ally who can, again, carry the message that these things are needed, whether it's through, chemical abuse and
Yeah.
addiction, or whether it's homelessness,
Hmm.
or whether it's economic injustice, whatever it is, that we're able to keep talking about it, organizing with each other, and at all levels within our tribal leadership, bringing them in. Even though we're in an urban area, our tribal leadership, like yourself, you're here and represent us and represent our issues back to home, where
Hmm.
there could be some resources. So we have a way of just knocking on doors and getting the attention of our legislators,
Yeah.
who have who they wield a lot of power, whether it's financially or otherwise. So it's kind of like you don't give up. However, you can get that voice and then organize yourselves in a way that you share that same history, you share those same concerns, and able to elevate your voices so that that becomes stronger and
Yeah.
eventually get heard. It's like,
Yeah.
well, they're not going to go away. We better address what they're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Rita, I want to hand the mic over to you. This my mic, and take over a couple questions if you don't mind, and I'm going to find you another mic here in my bag.
Okay.
So we're doing live, I guess, juggling. Oh,
Well, Bonnie, I have the pleasure of working with your grandson, Manny, in the Department of Native American Initiatives at the Minnesota Historical Society. And I just want to mention how great it has been to be able to make these connections with community, especially when it comes to our families and stuff in our department, because I feel like all of us bring our full selves to our work and we can't separate that. So finding our families at the History Center, whether it be in these photographs that we have here and some of the old historic records and whatnot. So I'm curious of like, were you surprised when Manny reached out to you and was asking you about these photos?
I was. The picture that he showed me was the one with my brother and with the two friends of his, and I like, how did he get that picture, and where did that come from? And yet I was shocked. So he wanted some history around it, and so I was able to share that with him. But it was like, it's like these things aren't coincidence, right? Somehow or another, they're meant to be. The creator makes all that happen, where that picture gets into the hands of the people that can, put the story out there for others to see and appreciate. So yeah, it was good, and I'm so ever so proud of him being here and doing the work that he does.
It's very exciting, and I do agree with you. It comes in because we have had these photos, some longer than others, but it's just interesting how this project has come about. And because the Historical Society has so many resources related to our communities, but the problem, one of the big issues is access to those and what that looks like. So an exhibit like this allows us to provide that access to communities to be like, hey, did you know we had this? And then we do as much as we can give copies of the photos and other things like that so that community can use them and have them. Because I know like you have the photo now, so that's very exciting for us. And other folks have taken some of the photos too to be able to have at such a high quality level. So I'm like, what else do I want to ask?
I don't know. Let me jump in for just
Yes,
a
thank you.
second, and I just want to tell everyone this is a special edition of Native Roots Radio, and we're live from the Minnesota Historical Society here, and it's a live opening of reframing our stories. And we're here with a couple awesome guests, and we're talking about our stories, and it's really important. And I just want to say one quick thing is that it's not only important that your grandson's working here, but all the other natives too, because we normally are not invited, and it's good that we are here and are telling our own stories. Even we talked about that movie a little bit before the show. That's still not us telling our story. It's a story about Native Americans when it comes to Killers of the Flower Moon, or so we still have ways to go. But I appreciate an elder like you, all the work that you've done and your family's done and still continues to do, along with your grandson now, to make things better and more equitable for us natives.
Yep, I agree. I agree. There's a long, rich history, and it's so important what we teach our children. And my partner, my husband, is so big on that. It's like it has to be more than just our verbally, right? Instructing them verbally. We have to show them. We have to show how they need to do things, how to behave, and how to treat one another, and be concerned about your community, and invest some time and energy into creating solutions to the problem, right? And so he's part of that. He's demonstrating that today of what he's been taught, and doing something productive with his life. I'm so proud of him.
Yeah, you do. We all, excuse me, we all are, and especially here in Minnesota, where we do have trust land here. We have a deep history here as Ho-Chunk people. One of the things that is coming out, I don't know if you know, is that a book about Minnesota and Ho-Chunk's history here and the removal of Ho-Chunk. And we're still here, and I want to get Ho-Chunk recognized here in the state of Minnesota, and that's one of the things, as your elected official, that I've been working on. But it's an uphill battle too, for many reasons,
Yep.
as you probably can imagine.
Yeah, the another thing my brother did was back in, it had to be the 80s, I think, maybe 90s, early 90s. He had an exhibit here at the History Center, and it was shortly after it opened. And I think it was even in the same room.
They've changed
One
a
of
lot
these,
over
yeah.
the
It's
30
in
years.
one of these rooms, and that's exactly the history that it told, was the Ho-Chunk people, and how we originated in Wisconsin, up in Green Bay area, home of the Packers, the Whackers. But how we were removed from there and forced into Minnesota, and then how our people settled in like Southwest Minnesota, around Marshall area. And in fact, there was a farmer one day who was digging up the land to build some kind of structure on it, and he dug up a graveyard, and he did
Oh.
some research. He got some archaeologists involved, and found out that they were Ho-Chunk people. So
Wow.
he got in touch with my brother. I don't know how. That's always things like that always amaze me. It's like, how did he know to get in touch with my brother? But so my brother was really concerned about reburying them,
Yeah.
and not to disturb them. And so he contacted him, and my brother took some people. We took some food and some medicine, and we reburied the people there that were
Wow.
on Earth. So, so our people, came through Minnesota and had, some villages in southwest Minnesota and then forced into South Dakota. And this was all history that was told at this exhibit. There was some, I don't know what all there was. There was pictures, and I think there was some dwelt like a wigwam, a chipotake as we call them.
Yes.
And once a week, he would come in. Maybe it was even more often, and there would be groups of school kids come through and want to learn about the Ho-Chunk people. So there was a few times where he couldn't make it. He was double booked for things and whatnot. So he had me come in, but that's really what it was about, is to talk about the Ho-Chunk history here in Minnesota, because it is Dakota and Anishinaabe land. So, but there was a lot of pretty high population of Ho-Chunk people that came here.
Exactly. Well, and I think, and I could be wrong, but I feel like this has been part of our land too before the borders went up, along with Illinois, Iowa, and a lot of younger ones, 40 and younger, don't realize that. And so I think it's important for us to talk about that. There's going to be a great book published from the Minnesota Historical Society. Kathy Coates has done an unbelievable job. It's been vetted out by Ho-Chunk people, and like Amy Lone Tree has read through it, and so there's going to be a really accurate, because Kathy Coates is not just an author, she's a librarian that does research. So it's not going to be opinionated, it's going to be done by research that when we were pushed out here after the Sioux uprising, or whatever, however you want to call it, we were removed too. And this is our land, and people have to remember that. And one of the things I just got to say too is really interesting is that the University of Minnesota, whenever they do a land acknowledgement, but let's not talk about land acknowledgement, that's a different story. But whenever they do one, they mention Ho-Chunk, and I think it's a thing that we should still be talking about and talk about more, because we're still here, obviously too. I know with not just the Winnebago, our relatives who I'm related to too in Nebraska. We have over 600 citizens here in Minnesota that are tribal citizens of Ho-Chunk Nation that I represent, and that's a lot of people, and that's not even counting descendants or, like I said, the Winnebago. So, we have more people here than some tribes.
Yep. Absolutely. That was one of the things that my parents were really concerned about, that the Ho-Chunk people that would come here would find each other and create a community, because it's like it didn't look like, for me, we were going to move home anytime soon, back to Wisconsin. So because I thought when we first moved here, it was just like, well, we'll probably end up going back to Wisconsin, and here I am, like 60 years later, still here. So, and then you finally kind of get to that place where this feels like home. And if it is, then it's our responsibility to take care of it. It's our responsibility to, let people know that we're here and we're not going anywhere, and that we have an investment here as well to make things better for ourselves and one another.
Well, and again, your grandson's working here. All the work that you've done in the past in the state and in these cities, those are there's the people, the big voice have spoken, and we have a lot to look up to with the work that you and your family and other Ho-Chunk families have over time. But there's a lot of Ho-Chunks that are involved in things too, which is really cool for me to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I think, someone mentioned about our resilience, right? Despite all things, we've survived, and I believe we thrive. And yes, we have our challenges. We have our relatives who are struggling with, opioids and homelessness, just like the other people, other cultures here in the community. And we're doing all we can to address those. We have programs who are addressing issues related to homelessness. In fact, one of our Ho-Chunk relatives Mike Gozi is
Yeah.
doing amazing, phenomenal work in creating shelters and homes for homeless, our homeless Native people in Minneapolis, especially.
Yeah.
So I'm so proud of the work that he's done through the years.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yes, we have Ho-Chunks in all facets of this community. You know, my daughter is working for her MSW, and is just so concerned about a lot of the issues that her generation
Right.
is facing, especially single parents and living in a urban area. So
Wow.
yep, our people are very resilient, are very knowledgeable, skilled,
And we have the big voice going on.
and the big voice, and the big voice.
Instead of what Winnebago was dirty, stinky water, and we had to change the name back to our original name. And
That's good.
a lot of people don't know that in 1993, 94, we go by Ho-Chunk, Ho-Chungla, you know.
Yeah.
Rita, jump in. Your mic's
Yeah.
hot.
I was like, I didn't know that. So now I know.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know.
You can say whatever you want. You know, this is, you can talk a little bit about, I mean, I just want to say there's a big picture of this young lady swinging a softball bat with really high socks, jeans, and like a football jersey. And that's how I remember us playing. We didn't have our Nike swag and stuff like that, but I'm 62, and that picture brings back memories that of my era.
Yeah, and I love the softball image because I grew up with my aunts and uncles who played with the native leagues in the cities. So I remember going to those games as a kid. So it comforts me. It's very comforting seeing those images and hearing those stories and seeing how my mom and her brothers and sisters grew up in the cities.
Yeah. And I mean, at one time, you know, we see a lot of pictures like the picture with the students in the back seat of a car, and the cars were big enough to have 6 people in the back seat back then.
They were all squished together, and I think one is laying on top of the rest of them, but they're having a great time. So I
Right.
think it's all right.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, those cars back then, you wouldn't know this, Rita, but I'm old, and those back seats where you could fit a lot of people back there and sneak them into the movie theater too. Hey, there's some uncomfortable silence there for a second. But so, how do you feel about not only our relatives and your relatives, but just this this photo exhibit? What kind of feelings do you get out of this?
Well, I was just sitting here thinking about, this photo that you're talking about with the young woman in the baseball uniform. Your McKee relatives were very instrumental, very active in sports and here in the Twin City area. And it's your Gaga's companion. His name was Carson West.
Yes.
He was a phenomenal coach and was really involved in sports himself. And he coached our team. We had a Native women's team back then, and he coached us rather reluctantly, but of course he's so sports minded that he was down for it. We led the league, and there was another another competing team from I don't know what, but they were all non-native. Extremely racist team, and there was rules, right, that we had to go by. Like you couldn't bring alcohol, it couldn't bring beer past the bench, and they had beer at the bench, and their coach was drinking with them, and they weren't called on it. And when we would run around first base, the first base person playing first base would call us names, really bad names. And we would tell our coach, and we'd tell Carson, and he would say, just ignore them. They're just trying to get you, get your mind off the game. So at the end of the game, I mean, some of our girls, they didn't tolerate that kind of stuff, right? They were raised pretty rough. And they said, okay, so when we get off the field, let's show them, And I was like, no, we can't do that. We'll get expelled from the league. So well, you can't tell some of these girls because they're tough.
Yeah.
They're not going to back down. So, sure enough, we got off the field, and these girls, they must have knew that something was brewing. They came at us, and of course, our girls weren't going to
Right.
tolerate that. They were already down for it, So we're like, okay, let's go at it. Man, we had the biggest brawl. But it turned out that there was sort of a meeting and a hearing, and there was actually people that weren't from our team and our fans that came forward and said there was a lot of racism. There
Yeah.
was a lot of rules that were being violated. So we got kicked out of the league, but then we got reinstated, and we actually won. We took championship in the league that year. So there was a good outcome, and they had to do certain things to be able to have a team in the league, to remain in the league. So
That's an amazing story because
Yeah.
my Dega is Curtis and
Yeah.
Mark
very
and Gary.
sports, very into
Uh,
athletics.
Uncle Mark, or
Yes.
Dega Mark, still wears sweatbands around his wrist when I see him. He's reliving his glory days. I better not say that. But no,
Oh, yeah.
big
They're-
sports. And it's interesting, too. Back then, there was a lot of native leagues, though, too.
Yep.
Whether it was bowling, softball, and you were
Absolutely.
talking about that, too, Rita.
Yeah, and that's what I grew up with. I was used to it, and I guess I didn't really realize that they had of how it was like separate, a little separate native leagues. And I just was at the games. I was a little kid playing with my cousins, so I had a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just, for me, I love history. I really do, and I love these pictures that are hanging from the wall and the stories that they tell, and I just really appreciate you coming on too, and talking all these great stories, because you're living history. You've gone through these things, and this is a show that. We didn't know what we were going to do too much, Rita. It was, and I were going to talk about the exhibit, but I'm getting really schooled on some beautiful history.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is the opportunity, right? These pictures recall that era, the 60s, 70s, 80s. It was a lot of growth and awareness and struggles, that we face, challenges here as a community. But this exhibit gives us a chance just to, really reflect and think back on those people that led all of that work. And I'm just so grateful to the History Center
Yeah.
and the group here for all your work, bringing us together. And, I have to, be honest, I was a little choked up at some of the pictures because a lot of the people in the pictures have passed.
Yeah.
My brother, Eddie Benton Benet, he was my brother. He became my brother in a really different way. He was incarcerated, and my dad knew him. And there was a Sunday that he and my mother, they were going to go visit him. They got on the visiting list, and they went to visit him. And it happened that it was Mother's Day that day, and I don't remember that. So they went out there, and he thought no one was going to come visit him when all the other inmates had visitors.
Wow.
And so there was my dad and my mom, and he cried, and he said that my mom was going to be his mom. So he gave her a
Nice.
rose, because all the inmates were given roses that they could give to their moms.
no.
And he didn't think he had a mom to give a rose to, and there was my mom.
And
So
This is a story, we would not have heard if you not told us that, because, we know Eddie, Red Schoolhouse,
Yeah.
American Indian Movement. We know a different side, being in prison with Clyde Belcourt and all those stories, but that's a special story.
yeah, he was my brother, and we stayed in touch, and he would come and visit and come to our ceremonies in Wisconsin. And yeah, and he was quite a guy.
Well, I know we could talk to you for the rest of the hour if it's all right with you, or we have other guests too, Rita. It's this time has flown by, and I want to do this again. This is amazing stories, and I just I love the photos and love how they bring back memories to you, and for us their history. And I just have to say, as being a former teacher, I feel like there's a revitalization of our young ones now. Do you feel that way? I think they're trying to learn our language and do things the way that maybe some of us have missed because of boarding schools and all the trauma that's been linked with being native.
Yeah, I agree. I think I see it, and especially it's really great for me to learn about, Red Schoolhouse and the Heart of Survival School because of thinking about like the Badote Learning Center today, the American Indian Magnet School, like thinking
Right.
about how those schools, like how that paved the path for these to exist today and to have such a strong support system. So I'm thankful for everybody who was in the cities during this time because you really made things better for us. And so I'm very grateful, and I think it's really shown how much has changed and how we're able to live our lives easier because of you.
Yeah. So do you feel the young ones are picking up the baton?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's, a younger generation, probably the generation of my grandkids, that are becoming fluent even in Ho Chunk, and I see that happening more and more, that they're understanding the importance of our language and how, a lot of our tribes have almost lost their
Yeah.
ability to speak their language. So, just to see that happening is, really feels good. And, I just think it's so important that we, sort of find our voices in all of these different areas and, show our children, our grandchildren, the importance of, retaining that history, finding that history, understanding it, learning it, and then being able to share it in whatever way that they can in creative ways. So I see my grandkids, my kids, my grandkids, even my little great grandkids, are into their art. They're
Yeah.
drawing their pictures of their, shawls and their Indian clothes, and so any way that we're able to con- really capture our own history, our own, and be able to share it and be able to pass it on to our future generations is so important. And I see that happening here in the native urban area.
Yeah.
And I think that's always been the kind of the misunderstanding, that if you grow up in the the urban area, that you're just kind of like become colonized.
Yeah.
And you don't speak your language, and back home we just speak our language. It's like, well, no, I have to disagree.
Yeah.
Our young ones are learning the language, and they are, retaining the arts and the culture, and practicing it and experiencing it and enjoying it. So
Well, I sometimes think, and this is just my opinion, I won't put this on YouTube, that urban Indians are more woke. I feel like we're more progressive in a lot of ways. We talked a little bit about the American Indian movement. There's a lot of people like my uncle Curtis who told me once, he said he was so proud to be Native when the American Indian movement came out. I talked to Robert Lilligren, and he said that in 1978 they didn't, the Freedom of Religion Act came out, and he didn't know he was going to school with other natives. Just those things that our young ones take for granted, but there was a lot of paved ways in the American Indian movement and these laws that came about in our lifetime. It's not 3,000 years ago. You're the history, and it's not that long ago.
yep.
Right, Rita?
No, it's not that long ago because I know everybody. I think 100 years ago is not that long ago. So
Right.
don't ask me as a historian.
That's right. That's right. Well, we've taken so much of your time, and I appreciate it so much. So we have to do this again, and maybe we'll do it again at the History Center because, you're living history, and we appreciate what you've done, and and I mean that in a good way because you're humble. You don't talk about all the great things that you've done, but we heard by a few people earlier in the earlier opening ceremony of how connected and helpful you've been to the Native community and Ho-Chunk and just the Twin Cities. So I'm we could go 2 hours as far as I'm concerned, Rita.
I always tell my kids I'm as old as dirt, so
Oh,
they're like, "Mom, I didn't know you knew him. Mom, I didn't know you knew that." I was like, "Yeah, I'm old as dirt. I know quite a bit."
Oh,
Oh,
wow. Good one. But I just leave us with a final thought. And can I call you Gaga?
sure.
Gaga.
Yeah.
All right. We're so. This has been just a great history class for me and at the History Center, Rita.
yeah. Yeah, I love learning. The best thing is learning from community, and this is exactly why we created the exhibit. So thank you, Jimmy Gwetch.
Yeah.
Any last
Yes.
words?
I can't help but think about, my own Gaga, my own grandma. She was filled with stories, and I love just listening to the stories as she sat there doing whatever she was doing, whether it was cooking or sewing, beading. And that's what this reminds me of today is
Wow.
us being able to, recall those stories and sit with our elders, sit with our relatives and visit. I always say that, we can gain so much just by visiting, right? We don't take enough time to do that. My folks used to say that, we didn't have the luxury of calling ahead and saying, I'm coming over. We just went and stopped, showed up and visited.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'd say because the amount of time that it would take to get to someone's house, you didn't just leave right away, right? So sometimes you'd spend a few days there visiting, cooking, sharing food and sharing stories. So today that's what this reminds me of, sharing the stories, visiting, sharing food. So thank you very much.
And then I just want to say this too: the Native humor is the best humor. And when you say sharing stories, I just laugh because I've heard so many good stories in my short time being around. But also, it just makes me smile.
Yep.
Well, Pinigi, thank you so much for being on. And wow, we got a few more minutes here, and I just again, Pinigigi, thank you so much. Why don't you switch microphones right there, real quick? And what a good segue I have here going on here. Maybe I'll play a little music here, just for just a couple seconds here, and so we can just take a little break here, Rita and I. And technology is a beautiful thing here. There it is. There it goes. I swear to God, there it goes. Maybe I should just sing. Weird. Hey, could you guys play a little music here for a minute at the studio? Do, 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 do. Everybody's looking at me. Hey. Well, maybe we won't play some music then. That's crazy. I just had this thing playing. Well, looks like we won't have any music. Our show is ending here soon, so wow, what a great exhibit, what a great interview. Rita, thank you so much for having us out here.
Thanks for being here. I think we were inspired by the American Radio. Hey, we have some cool shows. I know just how cool like the connection is. And I think that radio is still. I think it's a great way to get it out and something.
Quick break before we end the show. You're listening to Native Roots Radio, and we're live from the Minnesota History Center. welcome back to the special edition of Native Roots Radio live from the Minnesota Historical Society. We're at the live opening of Reframing Our Stories, and I'm here with Rita Arndt. And Rita, we got another guest here. Let's take a quick hello to them and have them introduce themselves.
Bonjour, everybody. Here we are with Devery Fairbanks. And Devery, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes. Hi, my name is Devery Fairbanks. I'm from the White Earth Reservation in Minnesota, and I live in Bemidji and work at Red Lake Nation College.
Wow. One of my favorite pictures here is of the softball person here. It brings me back only because I'm old and I remember wearing clothes similar to that, and we didn't have our Nike or Adidas swag on. We had our jeans, our long socks. And can you talk a little bit about this?
Well, yeah, we used to play. We played a lot of sports and softball. Actually, I played everything except basketball, which is the big sport. Anyway, yeah, we played a lot of baseball. We used to play the Minneapolis Police Department team at Little Earth Park.
What?
By Holy Rosary, by Little Earth. We used to play them, and those guys had brand new uniforms, batting gloves, wristbands, stirrups, spikes. They had everything brand new. We had mismatched. We didn't have uniforms. We all had cutoffs and tank tops,
Right.
and we had one bat, one ball, one glove.
Oh.
One glove.
One car, one pack of smokes,
Oh, wow.
one woman.
Oh, my goodness.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah. Well, what do you think of this beautiful display of pictures? I mean, you were naming a lot of people. We talked a couple of years ago when this was first being brought around to the community.
Oh, yeah. I was lucky to meet Rita and to help out with this. I grew up part of my life in Minneapolis and Franklin Avenue and South Side.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm enrolled in White Earth, but we grew up part of our life in Leech Lake and Cass Lake. And then I've worked the last 12 years in Red Lake. So I know people from all over. And then plus Minneapolis. So and then plus being old, you kind of know people.
Yeah.
You're around back in those days.
Right. It's amazing. What feeling do you have? I think there's a feeling when you look at these, and a lot of people are not with us anymore.
Oh man, including her, and she's the baby of the family.
Do you want to say her name?
Tamara Marie Fairbanks.
Mm-hmm.
She was born in 1963, and she passed away in 2014.
Oh.
And then this lady behind her, that's our cousin too, Kelly LaRock Sundal.
Wow.
She passed away about 5 years ago. Them two are the same age. They're cousins.
Mm.
Yeah, it's and then I saw how you have it in there. Our great grandfather's name is Paul LaRock.
Mm-hmm.
It shows a picture of him with the Carlisle football team.
Wow.
And that's these ladies. His great grandfather played football with Carlisle. And then the same picture is Jim Thorpe,
Yeah.
real young Jim Thorpe.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure to
amazing.
highlight that intergenerational connection with sports, because I don't think a lot of people relate Native people with playing sports, but we've been playing sports since time immemorial. So it just depends where it's at. Wherever it's at, we're going to show up, we're going to play, and we're going to do our best, because I think we're a little competitive, but other than that, we like to win, we like to play, we like to be with each other.
Well, one of the things that I want to say too, with this showing, this photography showing, is that they have a strip of negatives, not only the published picture, but then the other 3, 4, maybe 8 shots that the photographer took of these same people, and wow, that tells a story too.
Yeah, I didn't see those, but I would love to see those too.
They're right next to the photos.
Yeah.
Oh, well, and then later, they were telling me to hurry up and go eat.
Oh,
No, I was thinking, I had my glasses, but I thought, I need a magnifying glass.
Oh.
Just when I was leaving, I saw you guys got
Yeah, we do have magnifying
I
glasses.
said, I could have used that. But
Yeah, we have a lot of the negatives of the photos. So we probably have, I don't think I've looked at the negatives where Tammy's featured, but I know we have a lot of different photos of that particular day in that game. So there's a lot that they have where people will show up and more people, and you'll probably know everybody, Devery.
Yeah. Hey, we're about to end the show. Can you tell everybody when, where, how to see this beautiful exhibit?
Sure. We are at the Minnesota History Center, which is in St. Paul, located right off 94. And this is called Reframing Our Stories, and it will be up for 2 years. So
Wow.
we're really excited about that, and we'll have more programming and other things. So please stop by. And if you ever need free admission, please email nai@mnhs.org, and we will totally hook you up because we want Native people in this space. And so please come visit. They're open Wednesday through Saturday. And so please just come visit.
Right on. Hey, thanks for stopping in. And you've been listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and we're here live from the Minnesota Historical Society. We'll see you Monday. Peace out.